Welcome to the journey into one of history's most enduring mysteries, the lost city of Atlantis. In this video, we explore the legend, the theories, and the stories that have fascinated people for centuries. Sit back, relax, and join me as we uncover what might have happened to this ancient and mysterious civilization. The ocean was calm the night the story of Atlantis truly began. So calm that the water looked like a sheet of polished silver stretching endlessly into darkness. The moon floated above it like a silent guardian, untouched by wind or cloud. And beneath that still surface, far below where any mortal eye could see, something ancient stirred. Before it was a legend whispered by philosophers, before it became the obsession of sailors, kings, and dreamers. Atlantis was simply alive. A city of light hidden at the edge of the known world, a kingdom carved into the bones of the sea itself. Its towers rose like pillars of crystal, glowing softly with a warm golden sheen. Its streets, broad and spiraling, were paved with stone so smooth it reflected the sky like a mirror. And at its heart, beneath a dome that gleamed brighter than the sun, lay the temple of Poseidon, the beating heart of Atlantis. But this peaceful night came long before the illusions of perfection began to shimmer and cracked, long before prophets warned of imbalance, long before the first tremor echoed through the ocean floor. On this quiet night, Atlantis slept, and within that sleep, the city dreamed. It dreamed of its past, of the 7 rings that formed its great structure, each ring connected by white stone bridges that arched gracefully over dark water channels. The outer rings held the fishermen, the artisans, the shipbuilders who shaped vessels capable of taming storms. The middle rings belonged to scholars who studied the movements of stars, engineers who tamed volcanic heat to power the city, healers who used crystal energy to mend bone and spirit. And at the very center lived the ruling bloodline, descendants of the first king, a man chosen, according to the legend, by Poseidon himself. That king's blood still flowed through the veins of the current ruler, Aelron, the quiet monarch with eyes like deep cobalt water and a voice that carried the calm of the ocean before a storm. Unlike his ancestors, Aelron did not hunger for conquest. He sought harmony between the people, the sea, and the power that sustained the city. But even as he slept within the inner palace, the signs of imbalance had already begun. It started with the animals. The silver-scaled fish that filled the canals began gathering at the outer edges of the city, restless and swirling in tight circles as though listening for a sound the Atlanteans could not hear. Seabirds flew inland from the open waters, wings beating anxiously through the night, perching on rooftops they had never landed on before. In the deep trenches beyond Atlantis, old creatures, ancient and slow, shifted in their shadowed homes, unsettled. And then there were the lights. Small pulses of pale blue glimmers flickered beneath the ocean floor, like distant stars trembling in the darkness. The engineers assigned to the geothermal chambers whispered to each other, uneasy. The high scholars in the observatory exchanged scrolls filled with worried calculations. Something was waking in the deep, something older than Atlantis, older even than the myths that surrounded it. Still, the city slept on. Its shimmering rings hummed gently with warm energy. Its lanterns glowed along narrow, winding alleys. The water channels flowed through the city like liquid glass, undisturbed and glowing faintly under the moon's reflection. There was peace, true, undisturbed peace, as if the entire kingdom was holding its breath, and high above, on the palace balcony, a single figure stood alone, Princess Lyrian. Alaran's daughter. Her long silver hair flowed down her shoulders like strands of moonlit water. She had always been different, born with an uncanny sensitivity to the world beneath the waves. She could feel currents before they shifted, predict storms before clouds formed, and sense the quiet tremors of the sea floor like a faint echo inside her chest. Tonight, that echo was louder. She watched the water, her blue eyes narrowed with worry. Something deep, something ancient, was calling. Not in words, but in a trembling frequency that brushed against her soul. Her breath caught for just a moment. She thought she saw it, far beneath the waves. A dark shape, a massive silhouette shifting silently in the deep, and then it vanished. The moonlight rippled. The water stilled. But her heart did not. For the first time in her life, the city felt fragile, shaken. She turned back toward the palace doors, meaning to warn her father. But before she could take a step, a faint tremor passed up through the stone beneath her feet. A soft vibration. Barely noticeable, but real. Atlantis did not tremble. Atlantis never trembled, and yet, tonight, it did. Lyrian froze, and far below, the distant blue lights flickered again, stronger this time. A pulse. A warning, she whispered into the night, voice trembling. The sea is speaking. But the city was still asleep, and the storm that would change its fate forever had already begun its silent approach. Morning came slowly to Atlantis, not with sunlight, but with a faint golden glow rising from the canal waters. The entire city shimmered softly, as though the sea itself was exhaling light. Fishermen stirred awake, merchants opened carved wooden shutters, and the grand rings of the city hummed with quiet life. But beneath that calm, beneath the warm glow and peaceful rhythms, something had shifted. Princess Lyrian had not slept. She stood in the palace's inner hall, waiting for her father. Her face was pale, her thoughts tangled. The tremor from the night before still echoed inside her bones like a fading drumbeat. She felt the sea watching, listening, warning. The doors to the throne chamber finally opened, and King Elrond entered, flanked by guards in white armor that shimmered like pearls. His expression was steady, but his eyes, deep, calculating, searched his daughter's face the moment he saw her. You felt it too, he said quietly. Lyrian nodded. Father, the tremor was real. And something else. Something moving in the deep. Alaran's jaw tightened. The engineers reported anomalies in the geothermal chambers. Heat rising where it should not. Pressure building. He paused, then added even more softly, and the high scholars claim the energy crystals are dimming. Lyrian's breath caught. Atlantis lived on balance, between sea and stone, between technology and nature. A shift in any one of them was dangerous. But all three? That was unheard of. Father, what if it's not a malfunction? She whispered. What if it's a warning? Elrond turned toward the vast windows overlooking the city. The golden city rings glimmered in the morning light. Bridges arched gracefully over pristine blue channels. The Temple of Poseidon stood like a crown, its massive crystal centerpiece radiating serenity. He spoke slowly. Atlantis has stood for thousands of years. It has endured storms, droughts, wars, even volcanic darkening. We have survived all things. Lyrian stepped closer. But have we listened to the sea before? Aelron closed his eyes. Not like this. Within hours, the great council of Atlantis gathered in the Hall of Tides, a chamber carved from white stone that curved like the inside of a seashell. On its ceiling, glowing patterns shifted like ocean currents. The room was alive with murmurs, worried glances, and the rustling of scrolls. Master Scholar Thalion spoke first. The seismic crystals are vibrating irregularly. The ocean floor beneath the western ring has cracked in 2 places. Gasps echoed through the hall. High Engineer Varys rose next, her voice steady but grim. The geothermal vents that power our forges are overheating. If the pressure continues, the lower chambers may collapse. A wave of fear rippled across the council. But that is not all, Thalion added, raising a trembling hand. The lights flickered, the room dimmed. The massive crystal at the chamber's center, a stone that had glowed for centuries without fail, pulsed weakly like a dying star. Lyrian stepped forward, unable to stay silent. The sea is trying to speak. I felt it. Something ancient is moving beneath us. Some council members scoffed. Others whispered desperately. Aelron raised his hand for silence. What lies beneath Atlantis has slept since the age of the first kings, he said. If it wakes, then we must be prepared. Prepared for what? No one could say. That night, guided by torchlight and a sense of growing dread, Aelron and Lyrian descended into the forbidden lower halls beneath the Temple of Poseidon. Only the ruling family knew of what lay there, a chamber older than the city itself, the air chamber. A place untouched by sea or sun, sealed behind a door etched with spiraling symbols that looked almost like waves frozen in time. Aelron placed his hand against the stone. It parted with a deep groan, releasing a rush of cold, ancient air. Lyrian felt her heartbeat quicken as they stepped inside. In the center of the chamber stood a monolithic slab of obsidian. Carvings covered its surface, scenes of cities swallowed by waves, mountains split open by fire, skies darkened by ash. But one carving drew Lyrian's gaze, a great circle of light beneath the sea. Atlantis shattering. Her voice cracked. Father, they knew. Alaron's face hardened. The founders predicted a collapse. Or feared it. But they believed the balance could be maintained. Lyrian touched the carving gently. What if we've already lost that balance? Before Aelron could answer, a deep rumble shook the chamber. Dust fell from the ceiling. The ground trembled beneath their feet. Lyrian grabbed the wall. It's happening again. Aelron pulled her toward the exit. We must return to the surface. The tremor lasted only seconds, but it was stronger than the one the night before. Atlantis, the eternal, the unshakable, was beginning to move. By dawn, the city was restless. Canal waters shifted in uneasy waves. The animals had fled the inner rings entirely. Even the crystal lamps flickered like dying fireflies. Whispers spread through the streets. The sea is angry. The city is sinking. The old prophecy. Lyrian walked the upper balcony, watching people gather in fearful clusters. She wished she could tell them everything would be fine. But the sea inside her bones knew the truth. Aelron approached. We will need to evacuate the outer rings. Evacuate? Lyrian whispered. Are we truly at that point? Aelron closed his eyes. We may be past it. It happened at noon. A crack. A roar. A plunge of rushing water. The western ring, the largest and most populated, shuddered violently. A section near the outer bridge gave way, sinking into the sea with a deafening splash. Screams echoed through the air as people fled from the collapsing walkway. Lyrian's heart lurched. Aelron shouted orders, soldiers sprinting into motion. But it was too late for the outermost structures. Within minutes, entire blocks tilted sideways and vanished beneath the waves. The impossible was happening. Atlantis, the city that defied the sea, was being reclaimed by it. Lyrian stared at the spreading whirlpool where the ring once stood. This is only the beginning, she whispered, and somewhere deep beneath the ocean floor. Something answered. A low, resonant hum, ancient, powerful awakening. The sea had begun to take back what was hers. As the night deepened over the restless ocean, Orion felt a cold realization settling into his bones. The shimmering crystal he had recovered from the ruins pulsed faintly in his hands, like a heartbeat, weak yet determined. He knew it wasn't simply an artifact. It was a message, and a warning. Legends whispered that Atlantis had fallen not only to nature, but to something far more ancient, an intelligence buried beneath the waves long before the first humans walked the earth. If the crystal truly carried their final signal, Orion feared he was holding the last attempt of a dying civilization to speak to the future. The waves carried a low hum, soft at first, then rising into a deep resonance that vibrated across the air. The ocean glowed faintly with a turquoise light. Orion stepped back, his breath catching. The crystal responded to the glow, flaring with sudden brilliance. A circular pattern spread across the water, like ripples from an invisible impact. Each ring shimmered with symbols, Atlantean sigils that moved as if alive. Then he heard it, not a voice, but an echo of one. Not sound, but memory. A projection burst upward from the water, forming a translucent city of light. Towering spires, crystal conduits, floating structures, Atlantis at its peak, breathing, alive, magnificent. Orion could see people moving through its streets, scientists working with luminous energy, guardians controlling currents as easily as breathing air. But the vision began to fracture. He saw the capital chambers trembling, the crystal cores overloading. Atlantean leaders shouting warnings. A vast shadow spreading across the horizon, a force that did not belong to the earth, something the ancients had awakened but could not control. Then the waters rose, mountains of the sea swallowed the shining city. Towers shattered. Lights died. Voices faded, their last words carried into the deep. The vision collapsed like dust. The ocean went silent. Orion dropped to his knees, overwhelmed by the weight of what he had witnessed. Atlantis hadn't simply vanished. It had sacrificed itself, shutting down its own energy source to stop whatever had emerged from the abyss, and now, something was stirring again. The crystal dimmed. Then, with a sharp flicker, a final symbol appeared etched across its surface, the star-shaped map pointing toward the deepest, uncharted region of the Atlantic. Orion wiped the seawater from his face, rose to his feet, and tightened his grip around the artifact. "Then the journey isn't over," he whispered. Far out in the darkness, the ocean answered with a distant, echoing rumble, and this time, it sounded like a warning.